Call to order the St. Joseph City Council meeting of May 16th. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I just feel like I'm talking.
Item 2, public comments. Anybody wishing to speak to the council on items not on the agenda, please come to the podium and introduce yourself there, John.
I'm John Paul from, I live on 817 East Stable Street. And Friday, about 5 o'clock, here, the papers from the apartment. The man with 3 kids and 2 dogs, one dog wasn't tied, went to a park, and I don't know what he did there, and he come back, when he come back, he came off my property. I told him to get off the property. Said he put me on the road. He just kept on walking, didn't even ignored me and just kept on going. There were no questions asked. I said, get off the road, on the road. And he just kept on going. I don't know what are we gonna do something about something that just comes up or what? Are you gonna let people walk all over us? I mean, that's my opinion. We
Okay.
gotta do something with this.
Okay, thanks, John.
Yeah.
Item 3, approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Motion and second to approve the agenda.
Yes, I'd like to add an item under engineering, so 10B, change order for the 2021 street improvement project.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. We're going to add 10B, change order. Questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, consent agenda.
Move. Second.
Motion and second on the consent agenda. Any issues or concerns? Anybody want to pull anything? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion does carry. Item 5, public hearing, special events for Sal's Bar. And we went through this.
Yes,
right?
good
Okay.
evening. So council, if you recall, last meeting, Kyle Schneider was present, and you had directed staff to move forward with both of his special event application requests. The first event will be on June 25th, and the second one on July 9th at Sal's Bar. The map in front of you shows where the event site is, and then he's requesting closure of that entire alley portion. A public hearing is required for outdoor special events that go later than 9:30 p.m. And Sal's Bar is requesting that both events go until 10:30, or have the concert go until 10:30, and then have the alley closure from noon on the day of the event until 3 a.m. the following morning. City ordinance does allow each establishment to host one event past 9:30 per year, and then the applicant has provided a site map for the event area. Departments did review the applications, and there were no concerns with the proposal.
Very good. That being mentioned, we will open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to address the special event permits request, please come to the podium and we shall listen. Seeing no one come forward, we're going to close the public hearing and move on to council actions.
Move to approve.
Motion and second, approving the special event application. Questions?
Yes. I know we have conditions to not have it go past 10:30. Nothing in here, does it say, are they gonna keep people outside past 10:30, or just as outside closing down at 10:30 when the band shuts down? Do we know that?
Just the concert will be ending at 10:30.
Okay.
The
So
plan is to have everybody ushed inside by 11.
by 11? Okay. And then I only had one other thing, is I know they own the house right there, correct?
Correct.
And do they have the tenants? Are the tenants aware of that, or?
Yes, so notice of the public hearing was sent, within 350 feet of the site.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had.
And we're approving both events, this
Yeah.
motion, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Kayla, the day of the event says until 3 AM. From noon till 3 AM.
The following morning.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, did I put it in there wrong?
No, that's right. I think till
Oh.
3 AM the following day. I mean, I just assumed that, but music stops at 10:30.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna hang around there outside till 3 AM in the morning? Is that what you're saying? That's
Just
what-
the alley closure.
I mean, but that's where the event is. And we have a hard stop on selling at what time there, chief? 1 AM?
One.
So, well, they can't sell it outside either, can they?
Mhm.
So what are you gonna do between 1 and 3? I mean, my objection is that they're hanging around till 3 AM and they really don't need to. The bar's gonna close at 1.
Mr. Mayor?
So you can put it.
So I think the idea is he probably wants to clean up.
Yeah.
I mean, the clerk said that music stops at 10:30. At 11 o'clock, they're gonna marshal people back into the building. The alley's closed until 3, because they wanna have time to start putting things away. So I don't anticipate
Okay,
a lot of people out there from,
is that
You
what we
know.
anticipate? Okay, very good.
Excuse me. You always have the option to move up that time
No,
if you choose to.
I mean, if that's his intent, I'm good with that. I just don't want people lingering around outside after the fact and all those things.
Yeah, I see on his thing here, it says 4 is clean up that night. Same as they've done for 6 years. Has the alley always been closed
Oh, yeah,
till 3 AM?
okay.
Just, yeah,
Okay.
double checking.
Yeah, some events it's been longer, I think.
Chief, do you know, have you had problems with the tenants then after these parties there, with parties at those houses?
I don't actually think anybody's renting there during the summer months, I mean, when
Okay,
this is
just
happening,
wondering.
so no.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think they're free and clear as well.
Yep.
Okay.
That's good.
Motion and second, special event application for both June 23rd and July 9th. Any other concerns or questions? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion does carry. All right. Item 6, right? Item 6, the audit presentation. We are eager to see this, as we are every year. Thank you for coming. Do you have like an overhead that Kayla's supposed to be doing something with? Okay, no, it's all good.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Janelle Bitson, and I'm here with Bergen KDV to give you your 2021 audit results. The first items that I wanted to cover with you are the reports that we issue as part of our audit process. The first one being the independent auditor's report. So this report again does state that the financial statements are management's responsibility, so you're relying on your staff here at City Hall to pull together all the information, the numbers that go into the statements, as well as the information in the footnote disclosures. And then our responsibility is to express an opinion based on the results of our audit test work. We did issue an unmodified opinion, and that's what's considered a clean opinion or the best that you can receive on your financial statements. So this opinion provides assurance that your financial statements are materially correct. The second report we issue is a report in accordance with government auditing standards. These standards require us to look at internal controls over financial reporting, as well as compliance with various laws, regulations, grants, and agreements. So we did have one internal control finding to report to you, and this is something that the city has, the council has seen before, and that's the lack of segregation of accounting duties. Just with the limited staff that you have within the office, there are some some duties that are overlapping. In an ideal world, you have multiple hands on the transactions, the different flows of the transactions to keep everything separate. But again, with limited staff, there are some overlaps. We noted no issues or no items of concern there, but we just need to mention to you that there is that overlap. And then when it comes to compliance, we had no instances of non-compliance to report to you. And then the last report we issue is a report in accordance with Minnesota legal compliance. Each year, the state auditor's office gives us a list of state statutes that they want us to test compliance with, and we had no items of non-compliance there, so another clean report for the city. And then moving on, we have some charts and graphs that we just kind of wanted to show some trend information for the city's finances for the last 5 years. This first graph here shows your tax capacity, your levy, and your rates. Your tax levy has increased slightly over the last couple of years, but your tax capacity has grown at a larger increased rate. And so this has caused your tax rate to actually decrease in the last 2 years. The top bar there shows your collection rate for property taxes. It did dip slightly in 2021. Much of that is the effects of COVID, but still a very strong collection rate when it comes to your property taxes. The next graph shows your general fund balance for the last 5 years. Kayla, can I have you switch to my? So this shows the different components of your general fund balance. It did increase about $1.3 million in 2021, and much of that related to some cleanup of some funds. There were a couple funds that were closed into the general fund, so that was attributed, much of the growth was attributed to that, about $768,000. And then the remainder was your revenues in excess of expenditures, and we'll go into a little more detail on the revenues and expenditures in the following graphs. And so then the different colors there break out the different components of your fund balance. And again, and so much of the new dollars that were put into the general fund, much of that is assigned for specific purposes, most of that being capital related. The next graph summarizes your revenues and expenditures and fund balance for the last 5 years. Overall, for 2021, revenues increased about 13.4% and expenditures increased about 17.8%. And then your fund balance again increased about $1.4 million in 2021. You're up about $1.8 million compared to 2017. The first year in that graph. And then this next table shows a little more detail of your general fund revenues. As I mentioned, they did decrease about $662,000 for 2021. The largest component of that decrease was the intergovernmental revenues. In 2020, you received some dollars relating to the CARES funding, which was relating to COVID and those types of things. While you did receive some ARPA funding or the rescue relief funding in 2021, much of that was not spent by the city, so it's not recognized as revenue for this year. It will be recognized in the revenue the year that you spend those funds, so it'll kind of help you match up the revenues and expenditures as you're spending those dollars. You also had a decrease in charges for services. The fire fund, previously fire activity was presented as part of the general fund, and that was broke out to its own fund for 2021, so you can see that that information in a little more detail within its own fund. So that's a large reason for that decrease in the charges for services. And then your property tax revenues did increase in the general fund. Much of that was just related to the allocation and how those dollars are allocated between funds. Yep.
If you take out 2020 CARES ARPA funding, what kind of, Is it like a normal graph, we're still moving up with intergovernmental funding? Know what I mean?
Yep, it's relatively consistent. There was a couple small, did you get the Small Cities grant?
Yeah,
This year was new.
No, our LGA is a little bit higher, just with, in the formula.
okay,
So it would have increased a little bit, but I think you would still see the decrease because of moving the fire fund out.
okay,
So that charges for service Janelle alluded to would still have an impact.
okay, thank you.
And then the pie charts here just show the different components of your revenue as a percentage of the whole. So the intergovernmental revenues and the property taxes are the largest components of your revenues, making up about 86% of your revenues in 2021, about 81% in 2020. The next table here is your general fund expenditures. Overall expenditures decreased about $797,000. The largest components in here related to capital outlay and then also economic development. And some of these items again related to the CARES funding that you received last year, just spending those dollars on some capital items and then some economic payments to some of the businesses within your city to help them through that time as well. And then the public safety decrease, that again relates to moving the fire fund out of the general fund to its own fund. So these pie charts again show the expenditures, the different components of expenditures as a percentage of the whole. So public safety does remain the largest component of your general fund expenditures at about 45% for 2021. The next table here shows your general fund budget to actual information. The city had originally budgeted a deficit in the general fund of about $62,000. And then during the year, some amendments were made, which called for an increase in fund balance of about $136,000. The actual results was that increase of about $1.2 million. And again, we talked about the transfers earlier. That's kind of a large component of it. The net transfers was a $761,000 over budget. Also within there, your revenues themselves were about $112,000 over budget. Again, that relates to some of the additional LGA dollars that you received during the year, as well as some of the ARPA funds that were recognized and were not budgeted for. And then on the expenditure side, you were about $365,000 below budget. A large component of that was in the public works line item. There was some seal coating, crack filling, and those types of items that were budgeted for, and those didn't actually take place during the year. And then culture and recreation was also under budget, about $115,000. Much of that related to selling Colts Academy. You had budgeted for a full year of expenditures with that facility. And then once the sale happened, you no longer had those expenditures. And then moving on to your enterprise funds within the city. The first graph here is the water fund. So it shows your operating revenues, expenses, and then your operating income with depreciation and without depreciation. So revenues increased about $27,000 or 2.4% in this fund with an increase in your usage. As I mentioned, you did have that operating income with depreciation. That's something to always keep in mind is it is important to cover depreciation or at least a part of depreciation because it helps you build up those reserves for repairs or future replacements when those needs arise. So each city, we just kind of recommend that you kind of keep that kind of in your thought process at what level you want to fund depreciation for each of these funds. And in a lot of your funds, you are covering depreciation fully, so that really does set you up nicely for when the time comes to whether it's replacements or expanding your systems and so forth. And then the sewer fund, similar trend here. You did have an increase in your operating revenues and expenses for 2021. This fund also has operating income both with and without depreciation, so you're fully covering depreciation in this fund as well. And then the refuse fund, activity did increase in 2021, both relating to revenues and expenses. As you had an increase in costs, those costs were kind of passed along to the residents using the system. But this fund does have an operating loss with depreciation and without depreciation. So it's kind of again, this is one of those funds that I know that the city has considered where you were with fund balance or net position and what was going to be covered in this fund. And I think that at the time the decision was made that you were going to cover depreciation in water and sewer and kind of keep these fees a little bit lower. But it's just something to keep in mind and continue to consider when you do your rate studies going forward.
Say, Janelle, I have a question. So on this refuse fund, we're talking about having Republic pick up trash, right?
It is Republic Services, but we also run the compost site through
Okay,
the
so
refuse fund.
our skin in the game, refuse-wise, is just the compost area? For depreciation, what are we depreciating?
We actually have, I think the front end loader, a piece of that, a part of
Okay.
it. So we do have that piece of it when we purchased the last one, about 2014, 16,
Okay.
something like that. So it's just a small percentage, but
Thanks.
And then the next fund is the stormwater fund. Revenues did increase for 2021 with an increase in both rates and users. Expenses increased, much of that was related to depreciation for the year. So this fund did have an operating loss with depreciation and operating income without depreciation. So you're covering about 80% of the depreciation within this fund. And then the last one here for you is the streetlight utility fund. This is the fourth year in the charts provided that you did have operating income for this fund. So both your revenues and expenses did increase again in 2021. And then again, the fourth year of operating income within this fund. So kind of a quick summary for 2021. Certainly open to any questions on something we covered tonight or something that you might have read in the documents that you received ahead of time.
So I have a question on page 7 under fines and forfeitures. That number doubled to 87,000, more than doubled to 87,000 compared to last year. So I'm wondering what accounts for that doubling of revenue on fines and forfeitures? And maybe that's over
we
here.
did add some recently we've added some police officers, so having more officers on staff. You also have a young team that is out there, you know, pretty much doing their job. They're out in the streets and doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, yeah, we do see, even through the court system, restitution and things is definitely up with having the additional officers.
Let's hire more.
Slow down.
What are we waiting for?
Slow down.
Don't forget the allocation on where the money is spent in the general fund and who had the highest percentage.
Yeah.
Some additional lighting in some of the parks. So does the street light utility take care of new lighting? Or is that a budgeted item? Know what I mean?
That would have to come out of parks.
Really?
We can't take that out of street lighting, no, right?
The street lighting was intended for For instance, when we did Field Street, some of the street lighting extension on there, making sure that we have a certain type of lighting that we want, especially in the main corridors. We do try to get some of the lighting added for developments, paid for by the developments, but there are instances like on Field Street, 20th Avenue Southeast, where we're installing those street lighting, so we have the money to do that. I think initially also we had some of the street lights, changing them over to the decorative lighting along College in Minnesota. Funds were set aside to slowly do those conversions. I think we've converted the ones that we wanted to, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to go further into the system. And then again, it's also replacement of those, you know, to think about that.
But it's primarily street, not parks or facilities that we own.
That's how it was intended, yes.
Okay, very good. And did we just negotiate a new contract with Compost?
We did, and the council approved that a few months back.
But we still may be losing money because, or is it just the entire package?
It's compost and the refuse. When we've set rates, we've been very conservative on the increases for the refuse and the compost. Now, I know you just did the compost increase here for 2022, but that wouldn't be reflected yet. Because we needed larger increases, say in water and sewer, we kind of kept this one at a minimum since it did have a net position that we could draw from. So that was intentional
Okay,
over last few years.
okay. Well, I know it's one of the budget items we looked at last year for increasing rates based on the last time we did that, so, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Janelle. Any other questions? Very good. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Janelle, and thanks everybody here at the city. That definitely helps to put into getting to this point, so.
Item 7, public hearing for the MS4 annual report.
We do need action on the audit too.
Oh, do we have to approve it?
Move to accept the 2021 audit.
My bad.
I'll second.
Motion and second to accept 2021 audit. Further questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Janelle. Now, item 7, MS4, something, yada, yada.
So the MS4 is our annual stormwater report. And every year we're required to host a public hearing. It can be held standalone or combined like it is here tonight. It gives an opportunity for public to comment on our stormwater systems. Just a quick overview and update of last year's report. So we have no changes to our city ordinances, no changes to our best management practices, and we had no illicit discharges. So all in all, we got an A+ in our report. So we just have to open a public hearing.
Well, thank you, Ryan. With that said, we will open a public hearing, so anybody can comment on the overwhelmingly good A+ report we got on the MS4. Seeing no one come forward, we will close the public hearing, and do we have to accept the MS4, or is it just, we're just done, that was it?
Yes, that was it.
That's the lightest work you've ever done, just kidding around.
You know,
Item,
when you're that good.
kidding around, just kidding around. Item 8, street closure for the Lions. We didn't change the parade route, did we?
No, it is the same.
Okay,
So the St. Joseph Lions have submitted their street closure request for the 4th of July parade. You can see the route in front of you and then the detours that they have provided. The Lions will work with the St. Joseph Police Department and Public Works Department to barricade the necessary roads. And the requested closure is from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on July 4th. And will go from 3rd Ave Northwest all the way to 17th Avenue Southeast. No public hearing is required.
I'll move to approve the street closure.
motion and second, approve the street closure for the St. Joe Lions Parade. Questions or comments? Yes, sir, Councilor also.
July 3rd, I don't see any street closures requested.
That came here last time, right?
Correct. When the Church of St. Joseph was here last time,
Joetown Rocks had it.
Oh.
yeah,
They had a separate street closure for their event.
I recall.
Okay, very good. Motion and second, accepting approving street closure request for the Lions. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed, motion does indeed carry. Item 9, fire department rescue van.
Yeah, so I guess Lori and I can tag team on this one. So the replacement of the fire department's rescue van is included within your 5-year capital equipment plan. You have discussed using ARPA dollars to fund that purchase. The fire board has reviewed the bid and is recommending approval of that purchase. With that, Rosenbauer, they have agreed to give us $30,000 trade-in on the existing rescue van, and that would be put towards the grass rig purchase that is also needed. We also could open that up for bids because we've had some interest from other fire departments on purchasing that. So that's the route that we likely would go, and then we could get likely more than the 30,000. So before you this evening is a request to accept the bid that's in your packet to purchase the rescue van using ARPA dollars, and the figure you'll see in the staff memo is for the entire purchase amount. So one of the items that you'll want to discuss and make a decision on is how it's split up. St. Joseph Township has indicated that they are open to contributing dollars toward it, but it's not for sure. St. Wendell Township has not committed. So we're requesting, and staff is recommending that we be allowed to purchase using the entire purchase using our ARPA dollars, and that we would own it, the entire rescue van.
Question, do you want 3 separate motions or one big action? Because you have 3 recommendations: accept, declare, and then allocate 30 grand or whatever. So,
In this case, you could do it in one action. There's nothing preventing that, so however you want to handle
Okay.
it.
All right, well, I'll move to accept the bid for the 2022 rescue van up to $157,975 using ARPA, and then recommend declaring the surplus of the old van and moving forward with requesting sealed bids to sell. Proceeds up to $30,000 from the sale will be applied to the new grass rig as well.
Second.
motion and second on just everything John said. I'd repeat it, but, he did such a good job.
So I've got a couple things.
Yeah,
I know,
question.
obviously at the fire board, with St. Joseph there and St. Wendell, St. Joseph is open to using their ARPA funds. We all know that St. Wendell declined ARPA funds and is still not 100% with their fair share of the 32,779.81, I would assume. So if St. Joseph still decides that they want to pitch in their 20.29%, then we would cover 125,921 of that. Is that correct? So really taking the 58.96% in St. Wendell's Township of 20.75. My math is 125,000.
That could be done if the council wanted to split that. We're recommending just to purchase it outright with our ARPA dollars, and then we'll retain ownership.
Okay.
And St. Joseph Township would not be a part owner to it then at that point.
So then they wouldn't use any of their ARPA funds at all, even
Right,
if they
they could
wanna give
apply it to another use
Okay.
in there.
One other question. You guys
Yeah.
are good too. For the sealed bid, I know Rosenbauer said they'd pay 30, but if we go for the sealed bid and we get more than that $30,000, where does that go towards? Does that go towards the grass rig, or is it just 30,000 for the grass rig? Let's say we get 42,000 and 12, where does that other 12 go? Or just, hypothetical?
We've talked about it, so that's gonna go from the sale of the old rescue van. So remember the old rescue van, everybody participated, so St. Joseph Township is part owner of the old van.
Okay,
So say for instance, the city purchases the new van outright. Still, those proceeds from the old van are kind of a joint ownership situation, and so we would recommend that we would still just apply it back into the 5-year capital plan. We could apply it back towards the grass rig. it doesn't make sense to put it back to the rescue van because
Right.
it's still joint money and the
Yeah.
rescue van then would be city money,
But
you know, a
we
city
could-
asset.
But we could put more towards the grass rig.
We could, and then just keep it in the 5-year capital plan, so maybe we'd have more funds than we need for the grass rig, but then, you know, eventually that has to be replaced again too.
Right.
Move on anyway.
Right, because a new rig, they said, what,
Yeah.
130? Or-
Yes, that's an estimate, so,
Yeah.
just still getting the exact quotes on
Okay.
that, but
Yeah, those were just two of my questions that I had. So-
Good. Kevin, you had? Okay. So motion and second on everything John said about the acceptance, the declaring, and the proceeds. Any other questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion does indeed carry. Item 10, A. Randy?
Good evening. So council may recall at our last council meeting, we canvassed the bid results for the 2022 street improvements. And so that was shared with you for information purposes. We're at a point now in the Chapter 429 process where the council now would schedule the special assessment hearing. And as part of that, there are two resolutions that are in your packet this evening. The first one being the resolutions declaring the cost to be specially assessed, and then the second one actually setting the special assessment hearing date. Normally, this is fairly routine in terms of what you're declaring for costs to be assessed. What's unique maybe with this project is we had included an alternate bid, as you may recall, alternate A, at the special, or at the public hearing. We received testimony regarding some concerns about drainage at the south end of 17th Avenue. So we had defined an alternate that included some construction of drain tile on both sides of the road. So with some additional storm drain inlets. What's on the screen before you is the cost from the bidding from the contractors. And so the second low bid and the first low bid was $41,136 and $36,294. So at the lower right-hand side here of the screen. So one of the decisions before the council tonight is to whether or not, we're not awarding the contract tonight, but you do have to declare what those costs would be that you would levy towards special assessments. To refresh council's the picture in your mind's eye, this is a graphic of 17th Avenue pointed to the right of the screen, so north is to the right. Those black lines with the arrows in the squares are the drain tiles that would have been added as part of alternate A. These drainage improvements, because of the profile of the street, generally only benefit the southern 4 lots on 17th Avenue that you can see in the screen. So given the costs that are involved with the alternate, it's staff's recommendation that we wouldn't proceed or that you wouldn't award alternate A, but we needed to bring that before you this evening in terms of before you acted on the resolution declaring costs as to whether or not the council would not award or consider award. As you may recall, we talked at the last meeting that the city would engage their special benefit appraiser that conducts a study to determine the range of values that an improvement would increase the market values of the benefiting properties. In this case, the appraiser's opinion that this improvement, whether it was the $41,000 or the $36,000, depending on which contractor would get the low bid, the maximum increase in value to that improvement was about $6,000. So the maximum amount the city could levy a special assessment would be $6,000 in total, $1,500 for each of the 4 parcels, which means if you'd levied $6,000, the balance between that $41,000 would have to be borne by the city. And so the question before the council tonight is whether or not the council saw benefit in proceeding with that alternate, or whether to ultimately not award it come time for the following the special assessment hearing. So I'll pause there and ask if the council has questions with what I just said on that subject first.
Before you start, I did my homework on this since council member Klusner had brought it up in the last meeting, and I did find that I need to excuse myself, if I'm saying this right, because I do live on 17th Avenue, so whether it's positive or negative, I need to exclude myself from the vote. But I hope, if I may say, that you are looking at everybody's aspect in this.
So,
Questions for Randy?
yeah, so my question is, again, so you're looking, what you're saying is the four properties, we could only max assess $1,500, which would equal $6,000, and then the city would be responsible for everything else.
For the difference, correct.
Yeah, okay.
And the reason I'm showing you the two, you might ask, well, why are you showing me the first low bidder and the second low bidder? Ironically, depending on
Close.
whether or not the alternate is awarded,
Wow.
it'll change which contractor is the low bidder. There's only about $1,500 difference between the first low bidder and the second low bidder. And so, close bids.
So if I heard right, the total cost of this alternate is 41,000?
36 to 41,000, yes.
Okay.
Either one.
Put 40 in for right round numbers there. And, so if we base it on the 60/40, the number comes out to whatever, then we have the, analysis done for the benefit. So the benefit, the city could assess 6,000
Yes.
per property, or is that
No.
throughout?
6,000 total, $1,500 for each of the four parcels.
Okay.
And the other aspect, you mentioned the 60%, where I would have a different opinion is your assessment policy is generally assessed 100% for new improvements. And since this was not assessed previously for storm sewer, we would have looked to assess up to 100%. Now,
Okay.
still subject to the special benefit test, which brings it back to $1,500 per parcel.
Okay. Got it.
So again, staff's recommendation in this instance was that we would not award alternate A.
So we don't order this improvement, which is needed, I guess, from your viewpoint.
Well, there's more than one way. I think my opinion for recommending not awarding it is that this particular solution really only benefits 4 lots. Bear in mind, when we started this project, this was an overlay. This wasn't a street reconstruction.
Right.
Okay.
So when that life cycle of the street comes to the point of reconstructing the street, we'll likely look at more comprehensive drainage improvements, perhaps curb and gutter at some point in the
Okay,
future.
okay,
So
good.
from my perspective, you're not getting the bang for your buck
Okay.
for this alternate, and that would happen when you did a more comprehensive improvement when the street gets reconstructed.
Then what's the opinion of the 4 property owners?
My understanding
Or haven't
is
reached out
that-
that far?
Not directly.
Okay.
I've heard,
We got an email from one.
Yeah, got an email from one. I think you did too, Bob.
We got an email from one.
I had one meeting with the property owner, and I think their concern certainly was the cost, or ultimately the cost that would be assessed. And that, we're talking about what we call a bird bath, or a localized drainage issue at the end of a driveway. And no doubt a nuisance and irritating to look at, but it was tough to reconcile $41,000 to, correct a bird bath.
Okay.
So, the other slide that I wanted to share with you, ultimately we'll have these slides available at the special assessment hearing, but wanted to give you a canvas of what the project costs look like between when we had our public improvement hearing back earlier in the winter and after the bids. And so the construction costs projected, the final construction costs are projected to be pretty close to where we're estimating at the feasibility stage and what we shared at the public hearing. So we did dip into the contingency a little bit with the low bid at $589,000. But you can see roughly within $30,000, the projected total cost in terms of moving into that special assessment hearing. One other slide, again, to kind of give you a cross-section. The column with the yellow arrow are the proposed assessment rates. The column to the left were the assessment rates that we were estimating back at the feasibility stage. So a couple went down, a couple went up, but generally within a couple of dollars of one another.
Say, Randy, why would Ellie Court have such a high linear foot compared to the others? I'm just curious, just a quick overview.
It's a more substantial project, so that's actually reconstructing the cul-de-sac.
Oh, okay,
So you'll notice the difference. Others say overlay, that one says reconstruct.
got it, okay, thanks.
Do those overlay numbers compare to last year's numbers roughly?
Actually, I
just
think they're a
curious
little, I
how-
think they're a
how
little
much-
bit lower, to be honest, but I'll have that information available for the next meeting. But
Okay.
to be honest, Bob, I didn't look that closely at
Okay,
last year's
got it. I'm
numbers.
just curious.
So with that, I guess the order for the council would be to consider the two resolutions. One first declaring the cost to be assessed, and the second one scheduling the public hearing, a special assessment hearing.
I'll
And-
move to approve 2022-024.
With or without alternate A?
Is that a separate thing, Randy?
Yeah, I presented two options for you, depending on how the council decided on alternate A. So you would select the one without award of alternate A.
I'll add that to the motion
I second.
Motion and second, resolution 2024,
or resolution.
2022-24, without alternate A. More concerns or questions? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. That's right.
Abstain, sorry.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
That's all right. That's where you say yes. Okay. You
Sorry,
abstain from the vote.
abstain.
You're abstaining, Rick, or no?
No, no,
I am.
Oh, I was wondering what.
no, no.
He was asking.
I was asking Kelly
Just
for,
gonna ask you.
no, I was asking Kelly if she wanted to abstain or not.
Abstain, sorry.
That's good. So the other resolution is for setting the public hearing, or setting the hearing,
Yes, correct.
and what date was that?
That'd be your first meeting in June, June 6th.
Very good.
I'll move to approve resolution 2022-25, setting the hearing for June 6th.
Second.
Motion and second, 2020, on resolution 2022-025 for setting the hearing on proposed assessments. Further questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Am I abstention, that one too? I can, okay, that, can't I?
I don't know. I'm just giving everybody the
Oh, I
opportunity.
can't, okay, abstains.
Motion prevails. I'm as confused as you, Kelly.
10B.
So
10B.
So that will set in motion now. Staff will send out the individual mailed notices to the property owners and their individual assessments. So we'll be back on that subject, first meeting in June. The next item, we received, the council may recall, in fact, I think the mayor might have asked 2 meetings ago, there was a steel plate across 18th Avenue, and you said, what's that plate sitting out there? Over the winter months, staff had discovered a hole in the pavement, and after further investigation, we discovered that there was actually a hole in the concrete culvert. That culvert, well, to give you some orientation here, quick trips up at the top right, Minnesota Street is the dark black line. There is an existing, what we call a span arch, 28-inch span arch culvert that runs in the ditch line on the south side of Minnesota Street. That concrete culvert was not part of the 2021 improvements to repair. Actually, when we looked on each end, the pipe was true. Obviously, we couldn't see a hole in the middle of the pipe, but thankfully it surfaced when it did before we had our final wear course constructed. So we solicited, but between Ryan and our team, we negotiated a change order price with the contractor. And so they presented this figure here, $20,146. As I mentioned, it was a negotiation, so this is a reduction from what the earlier number was. but this represents the contractor's proposed final price for that work. So it came in actually right at around the same time your packet, just before your packet had come out, so that's why it's not in your packet this evening. But given the time sensitivity of doing the work, we wanted to present it this evening because CNL Excavating is resuming work on 20th Avenue if you've been out on site. So in order for them to order the pipe and have it come on site, we needed to bring it for you this evening.
So this 20 is gonna get paid to the CNL that's doing the rest of the work out there?
Correct.
And the original culvert, what do you call that, a culvert or?
Culvert, yes.
The original one that failed was a failure, right?
Well, it was never due to be replaced. So this is the existing culvert that was in,
That we own.
that you own.
We own it. It got
Yes.
installed many years ago.
Exactly,
Okay, thanks.
correct.
So Randy, in addition to this culvert up on 18th and Baker, there's even more erosion. I don't know if,
Are you talking at 17th?
no, 18th and Baker. 18th and Baker. There's a bunch of, again, riprap and wattles, but there's enough.
Oh, on, that was constructed last fall? on the-
Yes.
Yes,
And,
yes.
and so, are they taking care of that as well?
That'll be part of this spring's
Very good,
work, so
very
the-
good.
the ditch line and getting grass, in fact, I don't think we had.
Well, the
any-
last, again, the big rains that we had has caused an even more, and I just don't want
Yeah.
it to get into the street portion of it, so, okay, I get it. So a motion, so we need a motion to move forward with the change order.
Correct.
Move forward with the change order.
Second.
Motion and second to move forward with the change order to replace the culvert. Any further questions or concerns? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
We're into reports. Item 11, A.
Yeah, Mayor and Council. I've been scheduling several interviews and making contact, several stakeholders in the community, whether it be business owners, residents, you name it, for Heartsick to interview. And so they are here this week, and we have another week and a couple weeks where they'll be on site as well. Fire Chief Jeff Taufin and I attended a meeting with the other area cities, including Sartell, Way Park, and St. Cloud, in regards to completing that fire study. I know that seems like it's been going on as far as discussion. However, we did have a presentation from Emergency Services Consulting International, known as ESCI. So they presented what they could do, because the meeting before that with the area cities, we had discussed and decided that we wanted another proposal. So where we're at now is we are waiting for a formal written proposal from ESCI and hopefully get this moving forward. Lori and I have been working with our financial consultant as well as legal counsel on the Trobex tax abatement request, so that hearing will be before you at your next meeting. We're working on auditing work as well. Staff also met with the applicants that had requested the amendment to the RR district. So there likely will be more discussion on that in regards to, they would like to continue to move forward. So more to come on that. Nate and I had met with the SH funding team in regards to our LCCMR grant application for East Park, and that's due at the end of the month. I have had contact with our labor attorney on completing that compensation study, which you approved at your last meeting. We're moving forward with the administrative assistant position. We do have to get that scored properly before we can post it, so it hasn't been posted yet. And then upcoming meetings, the EDA meets tomorrow. We have a special city council meeting on Thursday with the community center group, as well as HMA, YMCA, Going Construction, and Jason Wood with Hearts plans on being there as well. And then city council work session on the 24th, and then of course your next meeting on June 6th.
Thank you, Teresa. Questions for her? Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, East Park is East Lake now.
Yeah,
Okay, so
right.
I don't know if we should rethink how we're gonna do that area based upon the floodplain. You know, I don't know.
Well, about half of it is under and half of it is above.
So what you see that's under is not part of the East Park build-out.
Okay.
That is, that's like,
That's part of the East Park dock.
yeah.
Yeah, there's
I'm
like
just-
two, I know.
I'm being sarcastic, sort of.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
and I
actually
get it.
backwater area, so.
Very good. Any other questions? 11B, Nate?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Please stop me with any questions. I'll just highlight some aspects of my report here. So we have the EDA meeting tomorrow where we'll be reviewing Trobec's tax abatement application. The Planning Commission meeting for this month was canceled. Day-to-day activity is really increased. That's spring, right? A lot of people doing tons of different projects out there. So day-to-day stuff, administrative things, reviewing of permits have taken up a vast majority of my time, which doesn't allow a lot of extra time for some of the special projects in that. The St. Cloud APO, we met earlier today and discussed Safe Routes to School plan for Kennedy. So had good discussion on that. Again, Trobeck site plan application, we're reviewing that. We also got in another commercial site plan application for Storage Link, which they own a parcel off of 8th Avenue Northeast, which they're looking to build some mini storage facility there. The rental letters all got sent out at the end of April, so a huge thank you to Vicki Granite who helped pull all those together and get those out. So we should be getting those renewal notices and everything in soon. I went to a conference in Breezy Point for through the Department of Employment and Economic Development at the end of April, talking about brownfield redevelopment, so that was very beneficial. I also went to a workshop on regional designation for parks, again going back to East Park, and we went through that process. So those same folks that had that are staff for Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails held a workshop, so we got some more insight on regional designation from them. And then also, as Therese mentioned, we met with SEH and went over the LCCMR for East Park. That app's due May 26th, I believe. And then later this week, I'll be doing some more online training, and then I will be out on vacation the first week of June. So, any questions?
Yeah, I got a couple. So the Bo Diddley's project, that looks kind of cool. Is that moving forward?
Correct. Yep, so they'll be doing a patio out there.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna be doing some interior remodel work as well. I think they're gonna close down for 2-3 weeks when they do the interior work.
Okay. What
They're
other,
already- They're already closed down.
are they?
Yeah.
Okay. I just
Yeah,
saw
they
that.
moved all the
Okay.
inside
Getting ready to-
furniture.
That looks really cool. I like that drawing too. What about many more projects and wine bar discussion that you had?
Yeah, so right now it's kind of just an idea. So I met with a couple folks that have the passion to do something like that, like a wine bar. And I think we can put the right pieces in place to make it happen. It's just a matter of timing. Might not occur for another year plus or so.
Okay.
It really just depends, but I think we're putting in the right pieces to make that work eventually, so.
Very cool. That's all
Yeah.
I had.
Perfect.
They wanna do that downtown or in the rural residential district?
Downtown,
Yeah.
prime real estate.
So,
Yep.
you mentioned Storage Link, and there's a dedicated Elm Street going through Storage Link's property. Elm Street. How are they approaching that? Or how are you approaching that?
Yeah, so right now we don't have dedicated right-of-way over that parcel for that connection.
Is it on our transportation plan? It is.
Yep, it is in the transportation plan.
So, how are you approaching that?
Well, it'll be a comment that we'll have in our site plan review, but since the city doesn't have the right-of-way and the dedicated acquired the right-of-way, I think there's limitations on what we can do in that instance.
Well, if it's been on our plan for the last X amount of years, and the extension's coming in 2025, I wanna know what we're gonna do. Jump in.
Yeah, the council will have to discuss that, because to your point, it is within our transportation plan, and you'll have to, I think that's a good discussion item in regards to how you wanna address it, if you wanna
I'm
move
just-
forward with that.
I'm suggesting they shouldn't move forward till we have that discussion, because it's part of our transportation plan. We wanna put a roundabout at Elm and 133 and extend Elm from 133 all the way to Northland. That's been there for a long time.
Yeah, and I think there's maybe 2 or 3 other properties that would be also part of that over by Dollar General.
Very possible,
right?
but we should have that discussion before anybody starts approving anything, even in front of the planning commission.
So that's,
Even the planning commission should know about that. They're part of the transportation plan as well.
so I would like to suggest that that would be an item that we would add to our work session next week to discuss.
Okay, deal. And you mentioned you met with APO about safe routes to schools, you did some things with parks and trails. Is our parks director involved in any of those?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, not the Safe Routes to School. So that was an invite from St. Cloud APO. So
Yep.
they, Dwight was there, Randy, and then the other folks that they had invited.
okay.
Yep.
I just wanna make sure that Rhonda, who's our park and rec director, is part of our parks discussion. Okay, yep. Anything else? Questions, concerns? All right, thanks, Nate. D, Lori, finance. Oh, did I miss fire?
You
He's
did.
not here tonight. You wanna talk, Jeff, what do you got for us? He's not here tonight.
I see that, but maybe.
I can talk on it.
Oh,
Or Therese
John
can
Okay.
too.
be able to opine on what's going on with the fire department.
Okay,
Yeah,
John?
I think we had, a good, fire board meeting on May 9th. A lot of talk, I think we talked about a lot of stuff with the rescue van, the pumper tanker. Nothing's changed with their calls, still up a little bit as we talked about with medical. But membership's going good. I think they had 4 new members here that are going through physicals and getting on that, if I'm saying it right. And we'll be going through some classes, and we did decide to keep, membership open to try and get 3 more. They're up to 27. So a lot of the stuff that you heard earlier tonight too was just the fire study, grass rig, van. Those are the
What's our
highlighted
max,
topics.
we're at max capacity, is it 30?
30.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're at 27 right now with the 4 that just joined. There you go.
thanks, Jeff.
Yep. You're welcome.
11D, finance.
In my report, I'm not gonna read everything on there, but a couple highlights. First, I wanted to let you know that, tomorrow we'll be meeting with, the financial modeling for the water and sewer, so we're gonna get that kicked off. Vicki and I are meeting with them. And that'll take a couple months to kind of get it put in place, so hopefully, we hope this summer that we can have some recommendations from that report. The other thing that I wanted to point out is the cellular endpoint conversion. We're waiting for the meters to come in. We expect they're gonna come in about July or so, and that we could start doing those conversions, in August. So Vicki in the background is also looking for some literature that we can, we'll fine tune the literature that we are given to hand out to those affected residents and get some things, information on our website as well, so. Bringing that together, and, thanks for your support for converting the financial software package that we currently are using to Civic Systems. So, in speaking with them, they indicated that they could, be in as early as about a October-November timeframe. So I'm gonna try to nail down that, time with them tomorrow, now that you've accepted that, quote. So, but know that there's a waiting list, and of course, there's gonna be a process to get, our data converted over to them and to put it into that software. So we are looking at around October, November for conversion. I wanted to point out that we are running the performance measure survey. There's a note with a link in the newsletter that was just mailed. And so if folks could please, take a couple minutes and just fill out those 13 pretty quick questions about city services. It does help us as we go into the budget season here. Now that I closed out 2021 with your audit tonight, we can start thinking about 2023 budget and start that work this summer, that fun. So that survey will help us with some of that feedback. The last thing I want to mention is May 23rd, next Monday at midnight, is the end of the legislative session. And if you haven't heard, today the House, Senate, and the governor reached an agreement about what the level of funding was that they're going to try to work towards and work on the individual bills. They have that max spending that they agreed to. It did include a $1.4 million towards the bonding bill. We have yet to see what the list is from the House or the Senate. All we've seen is what the governor has put out early on in the session, so I don't know what what's going to be in there, but I would urge you. I find the Minnesota House of Representatives, they have a lot of summaries about different actions that they're taking throughout the day. Short little clip of what's going on. The agendas for any meetings that they're holding between the Senate or the House, or they have negotiating committees that are working between the two of them, trying to figure out the final wording of everything. If you go on their sites, they're pretty helpful in just kind of reading some of the summaries of what's going on. I can say, like the LGA, the House is supportive of the formula change and an increase in funding. The Senate had 0 for both. And so somewhere in the middle, that'll all get negotiated out. So a lot of things are going to happen over this next week. And really, the last weekend, it's a crash course, all hours of the day and night, trying to figure out the final numbers. To be conscious that this is not necessarily a budget year, so they don't really have to take action on any one of the bills, say like the finance bill, the pension bill, public safety, whatever. They don't have to take action on that because we're in the middle of the budget cycle. However, with the huge surplus, there's desire from, I think, all 3 legislative bodies that they want to do something. What that is, I think the Senate's position is they do not want to have put something new in the law that now they have to continue funding till who knows when. So that's some of the concern in the negotiating back and forth. Where it ends up, your guess is as good as mine. So I urge you to go out to their sites though and kind of track some of that yourself, because there's a lot that's going to be happening. The league and the coalition I'm sure will also keep us kind of updated with newsletters throughout the week as things transpire.
So if it closes on midnight on May 23rd, we're going to hear a little bit more on our work session on the 24th?
Yes, I can let you know what the final the final deal is. There is not a desire to have a special session on top of that. The only way there can be a special session in Minnesota is the governor has to call that, and he really doesn't not want to do that, so he's really urging them to figure it out.
Knowing that they don't have to pass a bond this year is gonna make it easier for them not to have a special session. And so there's no big desire to get the spending done by Republicans anyway. Thanks, Lori. Any questions? Anyone? Very good. Public Works.
Mayor, council, staff. So as an overview on my summary, street sweeping, Spring Street street sweeping is almost complete. I got about 1 more day left, and then we're gonna start all over again with the storm damage. And we'll sweep the city again. So, speaking of storm damage, I had 1 public works vehicle that was caught in the storm that received damage, and the police chief had 2 patrol cars. My initial assessment on the buildings, I finished that today. Every building has storm damage to it. It's just a matter of how much. Some are worse than others. So I did reach out to our insurance company already. I'm waiting on a call back from an adjuster, and we'll just go building to building. And
That
assess the damage.
includes roofs as well, or anything?
Mhm.
The whole structure, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that, the Kleinfelter bathroom over there was tipped over too when we went there the next day.
Yep, a
Everything
couple of
okay with
times
that?
we put it back up.
Okay.
Yep.
Was that due to the storm or just
Yeah,
kids
that was,
pushing it
that
over?
was storm, yeah.
Okay. It was that long.
Could have been kids, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully no one was in it.
Hopefully not.
Seeking shelter from the wind.
Yeah, right. So spring hydrant flushing is complete. That went well. Really good this year. Minimal complaints. Vicky handled most of them herself very well. So I think we got a good message out there this year. 2 hydrants issues that we got to work on and 2 valves in the city. So that's another A+. Pothole repair, we did a little bit of pothole repair this spring. Today, we really kicked it off, hot and heavy, so we'll be making it through the city for that. Kleinfelter bathrooms, I should be receiving my last bid on that this week, and then I'll be ready to present that to Park Board next Monday. Millstream Ballpark, I got a bid back from one contractor to take out the fence on the upper field, and to demo the bleachers. And I got a really nice bid on that, so that'll go before Park Board.
Dynamite.
I don't know if Rhonda will be able to do anything on the fields, but they're so wet.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
pool out there.
Yeah, staff, business as normal. Upcoming events, appliance drop-off and curbside pickup is this coming Saturday, so town will be busy again.
Is that, where's that at? Is that the new?
That's at my Public Works facility,
Okay,
or
yeah.
our Public Works
Okay.
facility,
You can take ownership.
where I office.
Yeah.
Yeah. This will be the third pickup there. The prior 2 have worked very well. So
Okay.
Is it all city cleanup or when is that? Is that this
Same day.
Thursday?
that's the same thing.
Same thing?
Yep.
Thursday or Saturday?
Saturday,
Everything is Saturday.
I'm putting stuff out Thursday.
Curbside and electric.
Saturday,
Thursday.
Saturday.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it out Thursday.
Like some people have already started piling it
Yeah.
up.
I seen
So-
that, yeah.
Gotta let the junkers come and get some
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it coincides. The last week was a garage sale.
You gotta.
Okay. I heard that.
A Park Board on the 23rd, council work session on 24th. I have a Simwea meeting on the 26th, City Council June 6th, and safety training with the League of Cities on June 16th. Pending any questions?
Questions? Anyone? So there's been some washway in Millstream. I sent you some
Yes.
of that.
Yep.
so-
Yeah, and we are tracking all that, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Ryan.
You bet.
11F. Chief?
That's me.
Yeah, it is.
All right. Yeah, mine's pretty brief. We kind of wrap up our school year, is kind of the end of the police department year. Kind of seems like we get a couple months off in the summertime and crank back up again in fall. We did have a meeting. Rick was present for it. He's leaving, gone. Oh, but we did have, you're next. We had a meeting with college officials asking, for their input on how they thought the year went and a couple things that we want to change for possibly next year. K-State was brought up. It's going to be on our topic for next year about what it's going to look like for next year. We also talked about, graduation. Graduation went very well. It was, like Sergeant Matt Johnson said in his 19 years of working here, it was probably the quietest he's seen. So,
Wow.
which, from our point of view is a success, so that's good. I have been following up with a few property owners that we have had some issues with, climbing on roofs, a lot of garbage blowing around and everything else. So we are working with the actual owners of that to try to curb that also for next year. Staff, not much to report there. Officer Vossen is in his FTO phase and should be wrapping up with that in the next month and a half. And kind of gearing up for 4th of July as it comes to as well, because I got Deputy Tyson, Brian Tyson, former council member, reached out, asked if we needed some reserves again to help with intersection control, and I said gladly. So we're gonna come up with a number, and they're gonna bring their sheriff explorers in here to help us do some control. So that'll work out as well. Any other questions? And other than, like Ryan said, we had 2 squad cars that were damaged during the event, the hail event and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, Chief, I got something. I'm gonna go back to this fine and forfeiture increase that we had. And Lori indicated it had to do with that we are writing more tickets. Like an
That's probably not
additional
something I'm gonna,
$40,000 a year.
I wouldn't
That-
be able to comment on
That's
that.
a stretch.
I wouldn't be able to comment on that tonight. I don't know where those increases came from.
Yeah,
There's a lot of everything. I mean, it can be, maybe we forfeit a really good car and
Okay.
that's worth more. I'd have to see numbers
so
before
car
I could.
forfeitures that we auction off go into that pool.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not asking you to go
Yeah.
do a bunch of number crunching.
Sure.
It's just, thank you.
Yep.
So I got one thing too, just obviously follow-up meetings with the college, like any more in-depth with how they thought K-State went, how you thought K-State went, not just that in general, but what are kind of the couple of their top of minds?
Well, and Rick, you can jump in with your thoughts on this too, because like I said, it was a good discussion. The hard part, and whether it's politically correct or not, I'll just say it the way it is, the college will come forward and say, this is not a college-sanctioned event.
Sure.
What are you as a city gonna do about it?
Sure.
So, we look back at our ordinances and we look back at what we can all do and say, if they don't go to one place, then where will they be? I've been here long enough to know that when it wasn't in one central area, it was citywide.
Right.
So the debris trail was more for Public Works to pick up than if it's in one place. We did get a lot of feedback from residents that showed up that day and said, how can you just stand here and watch this happen as well? So we will be talking about this in the future. We'll be bringing some stuff and look at this. We're gonna have early discussions with the property owner about what we can do to reduce, if not eliminate this, but it's gonna be some baby steps.
Okay.
Is that, Rick, what you?
Ordinances other university or town and gown schools use, town and gown cities use to actually require permits for gatherings over like 50 on a private residence, something like that. We also found that they were selling food at this last case day, which is really illegal.
Yeah.
And it was somebody trying to break even for some of the costs. And so those are the kind of items that we have to actually crunch down on. But I think there's some room for discussion on exactly how we police larger gatherings via ordinance or permitting process and, let them follow the rule like Joetown Rocks or whomever else. I sent a couple examples to Therese. I think there's some discussion that we could have around that. I also think the next president, Warren and I and whoever else are gonna have the discussion about, we'd really like to see the end of K-State. I mean, we've eliminated a couple other things like Pizza Day, and now's a good time to have that discussion as they change administration, as they change kind of the, how they partner with the city and how we wanna partner with them. This is a kind of a sore point to residents, it's a sore point to the city. We're not trying to endorse it, we're just trying to keep up with it. So it's a discussion we're definitely on our list of things we're gonna address.
Well, and how,
Chief Fennison, can you also comment in regards to the out-of-towners that are coming to
yeah.
the city?
And that was kind of the other thing I was going through my mind right now too is, they did bring up, the college officials did bring up that this is not something that solely happens in St. Joe. It happens at other institutions, not just in Minnesota, but, around the United States as well. They may not be called K-State, but the objective is still, it's a drinking promoted type of an event. The problem that we're seeing right now is that in our area with Google and how they map everybody, if you punch in K-State in our area, it immediately brings up this event from St. John, St. Ben's. I mean, it's like recognized on the internet. But it's to the part now where the majority of the kids that were cited that day for public urination, for open container, any type of offenses, were not College of St. Ben's or St. John's University students. They were from out of town. I mean, we had people that came up to us and said, I'm 23 years old and I'm an electrician in Plymouth. I'm not even related to a college of any sort. I did my 2-year technical degree, but I'm close enough to a college age. My buddy goes to school here and said, well, you gotta come to St. Joe, it's K-State. So, I mean, when you have there were several numbers thrown out, 1,100, 1,000, 1,200 in the backyard. I mean, you're talking a large amount of bodies, and if you even said 50% of those are not even tied to the college, that's a very large number.
Right.
And as a city, and I know Bob's on board with this as well, as a city, we would require a permit for just about any other person asking for this type of event.
Right.
So, I mean, because Bob was out there that day and he had questioned a few things too, and I know we discussed a few things out there, and it's just one of those things that this has happened for so many years. When is the last year? So,
How many medicals did you have from that day from drinking?
at that site, none.
Okay.
We could have had several from elsewhere when they go back home and pass out. I don't have those type of numbers at all, or how that all relates, so, yes.
You know, one thing we could do is require the rental businesses to not have that. I mean, put it on the rental of that property. I mean, they
Well,
would.
we'd have to change our rental ordinance.
It's
then
not
for
so much
everybody.
the residents, it would be the landlord or the owner of the property that would be accountable for allowing that to happen on his property.
And
I
again,
mean-
we'd have to change the rental ordinance.
Yeah,
I'm not opposed to it, I
No.
just,
I'm just
what I think,
suggesting.
yeah, what I'm saying is, we have to put more tools in our toolkit to make this is the one event, now that they got rid of the Tommy Johnny homecoming game, this is the last event that I see as disrupting kind of normal neighborhood life.
Well, how did the city close down the party map? Well, that's when they called it when we lived downtown,
Oh, yeah.
was the party map, and they would print out this party map, and it ain't happening anymore.
Oh,
So what did the city do with that?
I still think you can get a party map.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty
It's
sure.
not doing it like it used to, though.
No, it's not like it
No,
was in the
but-
past where you were able to go around. I think honestly, and this is just me kind of going off cuff right now, because like I said, back in the day, there was other properties in town that were not owned by the same individuals, and I could come up with about 4 quick names off the top of my head who take good pride in theirs, and they have it
Yeah.
written into there to where they said, if you crawl up on the roof, it's a violation of your lease, you will be removed from the property. If you have a keg, because we know what happens with kegs, they usually take them downstairs instead of in a garage and they're open, so it's hard on their furniture, and you start taking cups up and down, there's a lot of spilling. So there's certain landlords that have got it written into their lease that say, these are the rules, and then there's other landlords that basically just say, you know, I don't have this in my lease, and the kids figure out which ones they can go to.
So it wasn't the city per se,
City-
it
I
was
don't
the
believe the city
change
ever
of ownership of homes.
Correct.
Ah, I got it.
Yeah.
I think about 4 years ago, we asked all the landlords to come in to have the kind of this discussion. You know, party central and how can you prevent it, and we got about 60%. And probably 40 of the 60 were all the good landlords already. I mean, we can do that again, we can bring them in and say, here's the one issue we still have, how can we crack it down? I mean, we haven't done it in like 4 years, but
For the sake of discussion, Kelly, I do know that one of my first years in St. Joe, 2002, 2003, somewhere's in there, Margaritaville is one that's on East Ash. It was owned by somebody else. Tim Borsch used to do the property management for the person. They had so many violations, the city council revoked their rental. And the owner wanted nothing to do with the property anymore, sold it, and then Tim waited the probationary period till he could rent it again, owned it, came up with a very tough lease,
Yeah.
and we've had very little problems from there forward. So,
yeah, there are some very good landlords. There's some
Mhm.
also really trashy, no good landlords. You know,
they have very loose
Like-
leases, yeah.
yeah. It's a topic for absolutely a work session where we can look at all the different variables and say, here's the direction we have to go in. Anything else for the chief? All right, 2 things, or maybe 3 things. So on June 26th, I asked all the state legislators here to come on a work session. They're gonna give a recap of the state session or this year's session. We're gonna go over some of the projects we're working on and coming up. And then there'll be just like a Q&A session, very casual. We may not get a lot of city work done that day. But you have 4 coming, and we need to change the time, if that's okay, to 5 o'clock. June 26th.
It's a Sunday.
Oh. What's our, sorry.
So it'd probably be the 28th. was the work session.
That's what I meant. Did I
Okay.
say the 26th? Who said that? Whatever, oh, God. Watch this.
Could we do it on Monday or no?
No, sorry.
He turned it, 28.
There, oh, it's the 28th.
Yeah, amazing, huh? I just got bad eyes.
That's the LMC conference.
No, it's not. That's the week after the LMC conference. 22 to 24 is the LMC conference.
I think that's on the 20th.
I'll bet you $100,000.
Uh-oh.
I got a Minnesota Mayor's Breakfast on Thursday, so it's not that date. Anyway, so we have 4 legislators coming, committed. They have to come here at 5, if we can start at 5, if that's okay. Okay. And then the APO meeting last week, about the only big thing that came out of that, we have new member agency assessments, and it's based on 2 things. Number 1, the census change, and number 2, the change in federal dollar allocations that cities can get. So expect an increase in our assessment. And then last Wednesday, Teresa and I attended the St. Joe Chamber where I gave kind of a state of the city. I do it every year. And I'll go through this really quick. Same presentation, everything. Mayor, fun fact, you already know that. So I went over the fact that we've completed downtown streetscape. It's done, benches, sidewalk, paving. There shouldn't be any more issues with uprooting roots and trees. It's good to go for another 25 years. I showed them the changing landscape. Hudson and Company, Bad Habit expansion, Jolioli, Old Fire Hall Weather Revivals expansion. We also have State Farm coming into a property that hadn't been, inhabited for many, many years. And we know there's still more landscape changes coming. All pretty exciting stuff. I said the CVB's been doing some pretty good work too. Nate and I just met with them last Friday. And so we're gonna ask the CVB to come up with the 2023 schedule. It's 2022. What big events do you want to do in 2023 and kind of get it ahead of it a little bit, be a little more proactive. The one big thing on the upper left corner is we did get the map approved. We're going to put a map on the Wobegon Trail. We're going to have pamphlets printed. Businesses are going to get them. Let's see, what else came back? Tonight, some of these events came back. Oktoberfest, Small Shop Crawl, Winter Walk, the Millstream came back. We didn't have Joetown Rocks, but we had the parade. And then we've seen an increase in community activity. Yoga classes, the family-friendly events like chalk walk and bingo, scavenger hunt. We had a baseball camp last week with Al Newman. The Tales on Trails is a really popular event with the dogs out on Millstream Park. And then Snowfest. So here's what I think, I presented them as priorities. Number 1, I gave them the fact that we've signed with an architect. We have a memorandum of understanding with the Y. We have Hartsook on capital or on contract. And we also have Goldman on contract. And that's probably the biggest thing coming up. I can't think of anything else bigger. But I also want to talk about industrial park development. We have Trobix coming in place, which has been like a 3 or 4 year wait. And they're, right at the bleeding edge of shoveling sand. And I know that Knife River, the transload station, is a big thing. As a matter of fact, Corey's coming tomorrow to give us an update from Knife River at the EDA, and that information will come transferred to the city council at the next meeting. But they're doing a lot of work. Knife River's doing a lot of work with trails and rails, transload, to expand the industrial park. I said safety change is coming. I said police body cameras, we're on phase 2. We're going to come up with a policy before we move on to cameras. We're still looking at a city surveillance system and kind of storage and those IT needs. And then we talked about more lighting around the park, which should reduce vandalism. I'm going real fast. If you guys have any questions, you let me know. So I also talked about, the last couple of years about again, we've seen this churn before. Candy came on, we lost 4 police, we added 4 police. Maygard retired, we promoted Jason, John retired, we got, Rhonda. We've had a couple of counselors retire or move on and replacement. So there's always a little bit of a churn that we've had to deal with. And like any business, it's just we're getting used to one another and still business moves forward. I talked about the governor, or the legislation that we've requested: sales tax exemption, the renewable energy, the grant for East Park to be renamed later. You know, there's some legislation out there to create municipal street improvement districts, and I've talked to our legislators about, that's a really important for us, only because a portion of our property taxes is tax exempt. And then the one-size-fits-all legislation on zoning and local control. And again, I haven't seen the last where that ended up, but that's again gonna come up here this last week, I'm pretty sure of it. Future plans. So I told them about the Highway Safety Improvement Program at the intersection of Minnesota and County 2, that we got that grant, it's a 2025, and we partnering with the county on that. The County 75-133 intersection is on the APO 2024 expansion list. It'll be 2-lane turns, expansion, and that's where Elm Street comes into play, because we're reconstructing Elm Street intersection and potentially extending the road all the way to Northland. And then, just so everybody knows, the bridge that crosses into Waite Park over the Sauk River is like one of the top 10 worst bridges in the state of Minnesota. So Stearns County got some federal money to move ahead with the construction. You were at that meeting probably, right? And so they're going to do it ahead of when they can get the money, because it's such in bad shape. But they're not exactly sure if they're going to do side by side, so you can do one lane, the other lane, which is really more cost ineffective, or make you all go around. So they can do both lanes at the same time and get it done in a hurry and keep costs under control. But that would mean we'd have to go to, 2 to 138 or whatever, Yeah. So, but that's coming, and that's really a needed thing. I mean, they really emphasize how bad a shape that road or that bridge is in. And I said, the other thing that we've been looking at from a park and rec perspective is we're looking at skateboard parks, expansion of sidewalks and trails. Rhonda has mentioned pickleball courts in the near future, and we looked at the off-road bike thing last year. We haven't really done anything. We have some people that would come in and help us design it, but it's really more of a teenager events, activities that we're trying to emphasize. We're looking at, Rhonda wants a new Centennial basketball court to get rid of the sand volleyball so it doesn't affect the vandalism that's going on. And then, Ryan talked about the plan for the Millstream Park. We're going to knock down the west side and figure out what we're going to do. And then we talked about client filter bathrooms as well. And then East Park Development, the side that's not wet. And then this one doesn't, I'm not doing that because, I can go back, but they didn't get the advertisement in the newsletter. So I said to them 2 weeks ago to have coffee. Whenever I have coffee, I send an ad to the newsletter, put it out there, I'm going to have coffee. I said it 2 weeks ago, and they said, oh yeah, I'll get it out there. So I looked at the newsletter this week and going like, hey, that's funny. I didn't get a bill either. So anyway, I'm going to do some other things. I'm going to sit on the sidewalk, at Jupiter Moon, Jolie Ollie's, different dates. I'm also going to try a walk, go out in Wobegon or go down here and just see who wants to walk and talk and see what's going on. Something other than just sitting and talking, because that's been okay, but not very effective. And that was it.
What about utilizing the market, the what do they call it, the market on Fridays? Farmers market, once a month, maybe going out there and,
Oh, I could do that. Sure. I was going to say.
Or have you and the director or councilman or, I don't know,
You didn't
but
see
I
it,
mean.
on there it says I'm going to invite, a counselor or policeman to join me on some of these things. The one thing, and Teresa, you can answer this as well, or speak up to it. We had some discussion after some questions, and the biggest thing that came up was parking downtown. Like lack of parking in front of my space. When there was an open house at Weathered Revivals, it got carried away. How come it's marked over here but not marked over there, blah, blah, blah. And really, at Weathered Revival's open house, you'll notice that Ash Street was cleared for you. But, if you want to go to Local Blend, you got to park right in front of Local Blend. So again, it's a discussion we should probably have, but I don't know how we improve it much. I mean, 1 block away from downtown is really parking available, but everybody wants to park like right in front of where they want to go, in front of Jolie's, in front of the La Playette, in front of the Local Blend, whatever. Anyway, that's the one I couldn't think of. There wasn't much else of a takeaway, was there? I didn't think so. Anybody have any questions? Okay, good. What's next, item 12, 13?
13.
Item 13.
I move to adjourn.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, very much.
Don't run yet. I'll find you. Very good.
They'll be